Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Kelly Corcoran. I'm the Associate Conductor of the Nashville Symphony. It's a great pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. And I'm just thrilled to introduce to you our guest conductor for this evening, Hans Graf, who will be joining us for the pre-concert discussion. Our maestro has been music director of the Houston Symphony since, I think, 2001, if I read correctly, and has guest conducted orchestras all around the world, major orchestras all around the world. Also was the music director of the Mozarteum Orchestra in Salzburg for 10 years, I think I read, amongst other positions as well. So it's a great honor to have you in Nashville. And this is your first time conducting the orchestra here in Nashville, so we're just thrilled to have you here.
My great pleasure.
Yeah. So tonight our program, we have some fantastic composers, of course, Ravel, Schumann, Saint-Saens. So we have all these, a lot to talk about, I think. And our program is titled Fairy Tales and Fate. So perhaps we can start by talking about Ravel a little bit and the Mother Goose Suite. And maybe I'll let you start.
Well, good evening, everybody, anyhow. Not to forget this. Ravel was a very strange personality, and he had a great affection for simple people, for children. So he wrote this for the Godebski kids. They didn't finally play it because it was too difficult. But he just cared for this purity and wanted to get away from very complicated music he was thinking all the time. So he sat down and wrote kind of a white key music. The first piece in the 5 pieces is called Baron de la Belle au Bois Dormant, the Baron of the Beauty who sleeps in the sleeping woods, which is Sleeping Beauty simply, is practically piano white keys. And it's a miracle in tenderness, in colors. The pieces were so successful and so beloved that he decided to give them an orchestral form. They were written for piano 4 hands first, and then he orchestrated them. He was a great master in orchestrating his own music. But the most famous orchestration, maybe you all know, is Mussorgsky's Pictures. That said, he could do his own music in orchestra almost better than on piano. He gained new depth and new colors, and this new version also kept people interested, and I think it was Diaghilev who gave him a commission to wrap it in an introduction, interludes, to make a complete ballet of it, with a plot, not only a plot, with a consecutive action through the different fairy tales. So he wrote this, in my eyes, most beautiful music after the other pieces, which is very interesting. And he kept saying that together with Daphne and Chloe, this was the piece he really liked the most of his whole production. So you give the fairy tale names. I can't say them in English.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what to listen for in some of them. So, for example, The Beauty and the Beast, the clarinet and the contrabassoon.
Okay. The Beauty and the Beast is a very simple and striking contrast between a very tender French waltz with this French lilt, which is inimitable. I read it properly, it sounds like Satie. I rather would say Satie sounds like Ravel sometimes. And then appears a monster. The monster, as everything in Ravel, is gentle. It's the contrabassoon. I think you know what is a contrabassoon. It's the longest tube wrapped into 5. It's about 5 meters long, and it's the lowest voice in the orchestra, and has, if you hear it alone, quite a rough voice, like mine today. Ravel presents the princess, presents the monster, presents the princess's initial shock reaction. She's begging, don't do me anything, don't. And then the monster tries to convince her that he is a gentle monster, and they dance the waltz together. And you will hear in the first recapitulation of the waltz when the clarinet starts again. Together in a nice real counterpoint, which is not an academic counterpoint, but the union of two souls. And when she finally finds out what she has to do and gives him the long desired kiss, everything stops. And with a harp glissando, it leads you from the bottom to the top of the orchestra. Up there, the melody in the heavens, played by the concertmaster with harmonics. The monster is transfigured. And wenn sie nicht gestorben sind, dann leben sie noch heute. If they didn't die, they live still.
Happily ever after, yes, happily ever after, yes.
And this is also very beautiful to hear this end, because this is an infinity end. It's a chord which just fades away with no clip, no end. Very beautiful.
I also love the section that is talking about Tom Thumb, who leaves behind the breadcrumbs behind him, and then the birds. This is a different movement, of course, in the piece. But and then the birds. You know, he's hoping to find his way back home by following the breadcrumbs back, and he discovers that the birds have, you know, of course, eaten all the breadcrumbs, and so there's no way back. And you can hear the bird sounds in this movement. You can hear all of these things.
Ravel was a master in letting the orchestra do things which is not orchestra. For instance, there's an opera which is called L'Heure Espagnole, the Spanish Hour. He has a watchmaker's shop, and he can do in the orchestra at the same time a music machine, all the different clocks, and it's just a universe of beautiful music. And the same in the Petit Poussé, in the, what is the poem?
Yeah,
Tom Thumb, Timely. That you hear the cuckoo, you hear the quail, and other birds, while the music is going on, in the flow of the music. An interesting thing in the beginning of this piece is that little Tom, obviously not knowing where to go, is changing meters. He tries 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and finally he starts to weep. No way out of here.
I think, you know, when many of us think of Ravel, we probably, you know, one of the first pieces that comes to mind, of course, is Bolero, probably. So, you know, we've kind of talked quite a bit about Ravel's wonderful orchestration and his colors and his timbres, but maybe specifically, what is it that Ravel does? How does he accomplish this, these beautiful, what sets him apart from other composers in this regard?
Ravel was always quite annoyed, morally, not financially, by the success of Bolero, because he said, this is my best known piece, but there is no music in it. Which is absolutely right, it's not even a joke. It's a melody which is not his, and it comes 17 times an hour, and in different colors. It's a fabulous exercise. And who would, for instance, glorify Carlo Czerny for writing fabulous piano exercises? He has written better music. So Ravel has written maybe much better music. What he has is probably linked to what I said, that he liked children, he liked simplicity. He has an incredible gift of putting into music the most intimate, pure feelings. He had a clarity in melodic invention, and he had all the pyrotechnics of composition, but this is not the point. Even in Daphnis, which is probably one of the most refined and technically brilliant scores ever written, it's not about the brilliance, it's about the beauty of his harmonization of the melodic lines, the French elegance.
Let's turn to Schumann, because there's quite a bit to talk about with Schumann. Of course, Schumann died at the young age of 46. He composed the Symphony No. 2 that we're doing this evening around 1845, I believe, when he was around 35 years old. This was coming out of a time where he had suffered kind of a nervous breakdown, for lack of a better word, very kind of significant bouts with depression through his life. And so it's quite a turn from the simplicity and pure innocence of Ravel that we hear in the Mother Goose Suite. So let's talk a little bit about Schumann as a man and some of the things that he struggled with and how we hear that in his music.
Well, Robert Schumann was a typical case of a young man who didn't want to be a bourgeois, who didn't want to be a successful businessman. He was an artist. An artist is not making money. An artist is not on secure ground. An artist is exposed to various temptations, like drinking, like doing other things. So, no wonder, little wonder, that Mr. Wieck, the father of this young girl Schumann was in love, was absolutely opposed to giving his daughter to this scoundrel. And the dilemma is that he was a brilliant mind, a very serious composer, a fantastic writer, but he didn't fit into this bourgeois scheme how a bridegroom should be for a father musician. And you have to know that musician in Wieck's time, in Mozart's time, in Beethoven's time, was not yet a well-seen profession. It was still at the edge of society. So Schumann was trying to get recognition. Schumann was composing like a madman, was trying to get piano pieces done which nobody could play, even himself. He was trying to get his technique better. He was trying to get the reach of his hand wider. Probably you've heard that he cut his to have more than an octave, more than a tenth. So he did the most crazy things, but Clara Wieck was really truly in love with him, and they married. But she got to be a very famous pianist. Even Liszt accepted her as a great pianist. So she not only, I think she gave him 7 children.
I think 8 and 1 died in childbirth,
Okay.
so yeah, exactly, 7 that survived. Yeah, but I mean, it's
She
incredible.
ran the family. She had the family income. And he was composing, and she was championing him, which was risky, because he had to play other things to make money. So when she was in Vienna, he was with her, and sometimes people asked him, I don't know whether they asked him Mr. Wieck, not Mr. Schumann, are you a musician too? But he was very, very much ahead of his time. He knew of Schubert. Is that strange? Yes, this is strange, because Schubert was nobody. Schubert died as a beggar, and nobody cared. So he went to Schubert's brother and discovered, when he was shown out, there's the attic, there are some papers, have a look. He discovered the C major symphony, Schumann. To write the C major symphony, you have to be a genius. But to read it on dusty sheets like this, with dim light, you have to be a genius too. He took them, those sheets, and brought it to Mendelssohn, and Mendelssohn premiered this symphony, because Mendelssohn had a powerful position. So Schumann was very altruistic. He, for instance, when he founded the Neue Zeitschrift für Musik, new journal for music, which is to this day one of the most well-respected music publications worldwide. And he wrote about a young man. He said, heads up. Oh, hats. Hut up, what is this? Hut up. Lift your hat. A genius. And he meant Chopin, who came as a very young guy. And then he, before his death, not very long before his death, he wrote an article about another young man who said this is newly dimensions in music. This is a great young genius, and this was Brahms, before anybody knew of him. So Schumann struggled for his own recognition, and he wrote symphonies. And he had a problem not only in performing on the piano, he had also a problem in conducting. He was a music director in Düsseldorf, and the orchestra didn't really react to him. They just despised him. And he sometimes, because of his psychological challenges, he sometimes stopped conducting in rehearsal. So Clara was behind him and led the rehearsal to save him. He could not defend his own music as a conductor. So he was sometimes very depressed. And he was really, if you have an analysis now of his life, he was heading towards the catastrophe of losing his mind. And the second symphony was a fruit of labor. He healed himself with this, like Rachmaninoff healed himself from depression with his second piano concerto, which then is his most famous piece. And the symphony was deemed by posterity not to be his best, which is very strange. And it took 100 years, for instance, in Vienna, the Wiener Philharmonic discovered, quote, this symphony in the early 60s when a young American came, Leonard Bernstein, and conducted this symphony there. And they learned from him that this is probably now, sure, Schumann's greatest symphony, and one of the greatest symphonies of the 19th century. And it's strange that Clara and Brahms didn't really help the symphony so much. But this is a long story to talk about what Schumann had to suffer during his life and after his death.
Do you feel like you can hear that angst and that struggle in this particular symphony?
Yes, probably. No, probably not. Now, if composers, I can hear a triumph at the end, and I can hear another triumph which you ordered on Amazon, like the triumph at the end of Mahler 5 is a triumph which is wanted. It's a decision, I will win. Or the triumph of Beethoven 5 is a political triumph. The triumph of Shostakovich 5 is also a statement. But this is a triumph of getting free. But other than that, when Mozart was sad he didn't write in minor keys, and when he was happy he didn't write in major keys. They could write in any key, anytime. And a great composer can produce an emotion in music anytime, otherwise he's not a composer but an amateur.
You know, I read, they may have said this in these program notes actually, that while Schumann was kind of trying to, come back to, come back to making music, and he studied a lot of Bach and the counterpoint of Bach, and that influence you can hear in this work in particular. Do you agree with that notion?
There's a new sense of counterpoint which then didn't get lost for the rest of his life. What I see is that, like Hugo Wolf, like other people who had recurring mental problems, he did not write glorious music or sad music because he did struggle to write at all. If you have a writer's block, you might know what this is. If you're a composer who has already written about that much and you have a half year and you can't write anything. This is tragedy. And I mean the healing, not because he wrote angst in his music, but he forced himself. And this was healing, the discipline of writing again.
I think you would agree that at times there are challenges in performing the music of Schumann. Maybe instrumentation things that as a conductor you need to find a solution for. Maybe you could share some of that side of this.
What is the problem in Schumann's music? some composers, Tchaikovsky, who adored Schumann, said the instrumentation is not good. It's too stuffy. It's always too many things and is lacking color and relief. This is a little bit true, but it's really greatly wrong. Schumann did not have enough first-hand orchestra experience like Mendelssohn, who had physical orchestra contact every day, hours of conducting. You know how it sounds. Schumann was a little bit more distant to this. So he wrote new sounds, and new sounds require new instrumentation. And this is always a risk. So he was not hampered by fate to have his symphonies played every day to his ears. So his experience probably was less than Brahms's or Mendelssohn's or Tchaikovsky's. Probably. But also, the character of his music is not like we say in German, plakativ. It's not like a big poster. It's always more intimate painting in music. It's never like it. And this color is different. So what we do now, my generation, more than Mahler. Mahler rewrote the Schumann symphonies to save them. He didn't rewrite them, but he really had a firm grip in correcting instrumentation and clarifying, which in hindsight is noble, but is not the way to do it. What we are doing is, in this symphony I sent my orchestra parts to the Nashville Symphony, and in the string parts, in every second part there's a little dynamic marking. If your part is more important, you get heads up, you go. And if the part is less important, I put the mezzo piano, so that you get more structure without changing any color, without really squeezing the music to what you want it to be, but just molding it as you do every time when you're a piano player. You have mezzo forte, and you have an inner voice which you play forte, and you have this finger which plays mezzo piano, in order to give it a voice. The same you do in symphony. You do it in Beethoven, but you don't talk so much about it.
Maybe give us some important things to listen for in the symphony along the way.
The symphony has a wonderful beginning, which is like a Genesis creation. There's an old, how do you say, an old chord like Haydn's number 104. It's archetype. Haydn. Very similar to Schumann. And he uses this throughout in the symphony, except there's no movement, to see where my mind is returning when I'm doing this music, where I want to go. And at the end, it ends the symphony in triumph. This is the question at the beginning and the answer at the end. You should also listen to the second movement with a little, let's say, you feel for the first violins, because this is, the whole movement is an audition piece. And every fiddle player wants to get into an American or other orchestra has to know this practically by heart. It's very difficult. But it doesn't even seem so difficult. So Schumann, for instance, didn't write difficulty for the sake of brilliance, which is rather stupid. Doesn't pay. And he did not really respect Paganini. What is to respect in Paganini? The brilliance. There's genius, but it's not for the German musician of beginning romantic, of interior and intelligence and no, that's not what we want. So this music is difficult like Paganini, but it doesn't sound like. Third movement is arguably Schumann's most beautiful symphony moment. It's a song, it's a sonata form, it's a form with a recapitulation, but it's very, very gentle and sad which I think no other symphony in Schumann has reached, and not many other symphonies of other composers. While the last movement is exuberant and life, full of life, like Mendelssohn's Italian first movement, and it sounds a little bit the same. And then it's probably a little compliment to his friend. They were great friends. And Mendelssohn learned a lot from Schumann, and Mendelssohn helped Schumann a lot. He was a very unselfish conductor. And I come back to this city, Schubert Symphony number 7, in C major, the great C major. Mendelssohn performed it in the 40s. The symphony was rejected by orchestras in Paris, London, Vienna in the 50s. When it was discovered, after Mendelssohn's discovery, musicians refused to play it. Refused because it was too long, too difficult, too repetitive. So it took another 20, 30 years until it really entered into the repertoire to be judged as the great symphony. Genius is the way.
Well, we have a few minutes remaining. Is there anything you'd like to share with us about the piano concerto, of course, that we're going to hear tonight? Very colorful, wonderful piece.
If you see Schumann as a troubled man who was struggling the whole life, you can see Saint-Saens as the absolute opposite. Saint-Saens was the greatest genius in every field. In science, in languages. The piano playing was just, I think he was barely out of his cradle when he was studying. And he had a great ease in playing and composing, which gives him the same posthumous problem we have with Mendelssohn and with Liszt. To be too gifted, too easy, is questionable. There are many composers who are like this, and it's very unjust. He's a great composer. He is of great elegance, brilliance, clarity, qualité française. So, for some, it's too easy. For some, it's just a real, worthy expression of a position in life. He also lived longer than anybody, so he outlived his time. He lived at a time when Schoenberg had written orchestra variations. He lived longer than Debussy. He lived almost longer than Ravel. So he was an anachronism in his own time.
Well, I think we're about out of time, so thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us this evening. And I know you're all going to just love the concert. It's been such a pleasure to see you work this week with the orchestra.
And you can be proud of your orchestra. And that is a very important part of the charm in coming here. This is your superb concert hall.